So today I'm making applesauce. I'm using a variety of apples, some sweet and some tart. Lemon juice and water in a bowl to prevent my cut apples from browning, and I like to use brown sugar, just over half a cup for this large batch, which really isn't very much, but the variety of apples already provides a nice flavor. I'm using Yellow Delicious and Cortland apples. And I need quite a large bowl, 8 quarts is what this one is, filled to about half with my lemon juice and water. And I like to use an apple peeler and slicer. I find it to be essential for large batches of applesauce, and I prefer the ones that come with the suction cup rather than the clamp base. I also use a paring knife and a large knife. Here is my canning pot and my 8-quart stock pot. You'll want to turn the canner on now before we get started peeling and cutting up the apples. I wanted to go ahead and demonstrate how the peeler and slicer works. I think it's really neat to use. Kids love to use it, and I even had my grandma using it last year when we made applesauce together. Typically she uses the hand peeler, but she had a lot of fun doing this way. And then you want to go ahead and remove your apple and take off any bad spots or skin that's left over. And then of course you're going to want to chop up your apple pieces. I like to cut it in fourths, so half and half again, of course. And you'll want to dunk your chopped up pieces in the lemon water mixture. Like I said, this is what prevents browning too much before you're done peeling and chopping up the rest of your apples. And we do have some scraps, but we don't worry too much about them because we feed them to our chickens and they love it. So then you just go on and do the rest of your apples. Here's all my apples. I like to try to fill up my whole 8-quart bowl. Okay, so here's where I add in the brown sugar. I like to do a layer of apples, a layer of sugar, a layer of apples, a layer of sugar, and so on. And you'll see I add a few ladlefuls of water at the end just to prevent the bottom from burning. So here's what my apples look like after about 45 minutes of cooking down on the stove. We like to use now a potato masher to kind of smush up the apples and get a little bit smoother texture and consistency. We do like pretty chunky applesauce though, so usually we don't worry about doing this too long. You can also use a food processor if you want a really smooth consistency for your applesauce. At this point, your house is going to be smelling pretty good. These are some of the tools you'll need for canning. You can buy these in a kit at any store, Walmart, Target, Rural King, whatever. You need a jar lifter, this is a lid lifter, a bubbler, and a funnel. So now it's time to go ahead and can up your applesauce. You can use quart jars or pint jars. I prefer to use quarts unless I have a little bit left over, and then I use a pint. You want to make sure that while you were heating up your canner, before you put your jars in the canner, you want a nice hot jar so that you can add your hot applesauce to a hot jar. If you add a hot applesauce to a cold jar, your jar could crack, and that would ruin your applesauce and your jar. We really don't want that. So the jar's getting pretty full right now. We fill it up to within a half an inch of the rim, or half an inch of headspace is what it's called. If you fill it too full, it might leak out while you're in the canner. So here what I'm doing is bubbling the applesauce. I do that to get as much of the air out as possible. At this point you may have to add some more applesauce or even take some out of the jar to make sure that you are within that half an inch range. Now it's time to go ahead and put your lid and your ring on your canning jar. I use a jar lifter to add my lid, and then with the ring you want to tighten it to what's called fingertip tight, just until the tips of your fingers can't really push it anymore. If you do it too tight, you risk not being able to let any air out in the canning process, and that's kind of the point. So then you want to lower your jar into the boiling water bath with the jar lifters.